Where Suffering Begins, a Buddha Reflection. I didn't notice it at first. The moment when the pain itself wasn't the problem anymore, but something inside me had started fighting it. I kept telling myself this shouldn't be happening, that it had to stop, and somehow that made everything heavier. It took me a long time to see it clearly, that the suffering I was carrying wasn't just from what happened, but from the quiet resistance I didn't even realize was there. The quiet turning. You may have noticed this in your own life, though it often passes too quickly to name. A moment arrives when something hurts, perhaps a disappointment, a loss, a sharp word that lingers longer than expected. At first, it is simple, a feeling in the chest, a heaviness, a natural response to what has occurred. Nothing unusual, nothing wrong. And yet, almost without warning, something shifts. I want to begin here with you, not in theory, but in recognition. The Buddha saw this clearly, not as an idea, but as a pattern that repeats in every human mind. Pain arises, yes, but suffering begins somewhere else. It begins when the mind quietly refuses what is already here. When it says, "This should not be happening." Stay close to that moment, because understanding it changes everything that follows. The first layer. Pain, in its simplest form, is honest. It arrives when life moves in ways you did not expect. A plan falls apart. A relationship changes shape. The body feels strain or illness. There is no deception in this. It is life responding to conditions, like rain falling when clouds gather. The Buddha did not turn away from this. He looked directly. He saw that pain belongs to being alive, just as wind belongs to the sky. There is no need to remove it for life to continue. But the mind rarely stops at pain. It begins to lean forward, asking questions that do not ease the moment. Why did this happen? Why now? Why me? These questions feel natural, yet something in them tightens. The body contracts. The breath shortens. Pain was present, but now something else has joined it. And if you look closely, you can feel the difference. When the mind pushes back, when the mind resists what is, it creates a second wound. There is a subtle force in the mind, almost like a reflex. When discomfort appears, it moves to correct, to fix, to remove. It does not pause to understand. It reacts. The Buddha observed this as one might watch a ripple spread across still water. A simple feeling arises, and then the mind interferes. It says, "This must go." It says, "This is wrong." And in that movement, tension forms. Imagine holding a tight knot in your hand and pulling against it again and again, hoping it will loosen. The pulling only tightens it further. In the same way, resistance binds the experience more deeply into the body and mind. You are no longer just feeling pain. You are fighting it. And the fight is what lingers. The weight of thought. Consider a moment of disappointment. Perhaps something you hoped for did not unfold as expected. At first, there is a simple drop in feeling, like a leaf falling from a tree. Quiet, natural, complete in itself. But the mind does not leave it there. It returns to the moment again and again. It replays conversations. It constructs different endings. It searches for mistakes, for someone to blame, for a version of reality that no longer exists. The Buddha saw this looping clearly, not as failure, but as habit. The mind attempts to reshape the past, as if thinking harder could undo what has already occurred. But each return adds weight. The original moment passes. The thinking remains. And what could have faded like a passing cloud becomes something that stays. The illusion of correction. There is a quiet belief hidden beneath resistance. It says that if the mind pushes hard enough, reality will change. That if you resist the feeling, it will disappear faster. That discomfort can be negotiated away through effort. The Buddha did not accept this assumption. He watched it carefully and saw its limitation. Reality does not respond to inner protest. It unfolds according to causes far beyond a single mind's demand. And so, resistance becomes a kind of argument with something that has already happened. Like standing in the rain and insisting the sky should be clear. The body becomes tense. The mind grows restless. Yet the rain continues. In this way, resistance does not solve the experience. It deepens it. Insight and Awareness Quiz. After you have listened, open the quiz tab. The questions reveal how you interpreted what you heard and invite you to notice the hidden logic in your reactions. Then, share your score in the comments. A different kind of seeing. What is allowed to be seen clearly begins to loosen. There is another possibility, one the Buddha returned to again and again. Not as belief, but as direct observation. When pain arises, it can be met without interference. This does not mean approving of it or wanting it to stay. It means allowing it to exist without adding the second layer, without the argument, without the push. You might notice the feeling as it is, the heaviness, the warmth, the tightness in the chest. You stay with the experience as it moves, rather than turning away or trying to reshape it. Something subtle begins to change. The pain is still there, but it is no longer surrounded by struggle. And without struggle, it begins to move. The space between. There is a small space that opens when the mind pauses. It is easy to miss. It appears between the moment something is felt and the moment the mind reacts. Usually, it is crossed instantly. Reaction feels automatic, almost necessary. But the Buddha trained attention to remain in that space. In that brief opening, there is no resistance yet, only awareness, only the raw experience as it is. And in that space, something becomes possible. You can see the thought forming. This should not be happening. You can feel its pull, but you do not have to follow it. This is not control in the usual sense. It is a kind of non-participation in what creates suffering. And that changes the direction of the moment. The movement of emotion. Emotions, when left undisturbed, behave like waves. They rise, crest, and fall. This movement is natural. The body processes experience in its own time, without needing instruction from the thinking mind. The Buddha observed that interruption changes this rhythm. When the mind interferes, suppressing or amplifying, the wave loses its natural course. It becomes stuck, circling instead of moving forward. But when the emotion is allowed, something simple happens. Sadness moves through like a passing rain. Anger burns and fades like a brief flame. Fear rises and settles as the body recalibrates. You begin to see that emotions are not fixed states. They are movements. And movements, by their nature, do not stay. The softening of identity. You are not the feeling that passes through you. There is another layer hidden within suffering. The mind does not only resist the experience, it begins to claim it. It says, "This is happening to me. This defines me. This means something about who I am." The Buddha looked closely at this and saw something unexpected. Feelings arise without asking permission. Thoughts appear on their own. Reactions follow patterns built over time. None of these are fixed identities. They are processes. But when the mind holds them tightly, identity forms around them. I am anxious. I am angry. I am broken. This holding creates weight. But when the experience is seen as a passing event, not a permanent self, something loosens. The feeling remains. The identity softens. And with that, space returns. The hidden habit of control. Resistance is not random. It is rooted in a deeper assumption. The belief that life should follow a certain order, that outcomes should match expectations, that with enough effort, everything can be arranged just right. The Buddha saw the strain in this. Life moves through countless conditions, many beyond personal influence. Other people, changing environments, unseen causes, all shaping each moment. Yet the mind continues trying to organize it all. When reality shifts, as it always does, resistance appears. Not just to the event, but to the loss of control. And this creates a quiet, ongoing tension. A tension that has less to do with the moment itself and more to do with what was expected. Letting the river flow. Imagine standing in a river, trying to push the water backward. No matter how strong the effort, the current continues forward. The more force you use, the more exhausted you become. The Buddha used life in this way, not as something to fight, but as something to understand. Events unfold, feelings arise, moments pass. When the mind stops pushing against the current, energy returns. The body relaxes, the mind clears. This is not passivity, it is alignment. You still move, still act, still respond, but without the extra force of resistance. And without that force, the experience becomes lighter. The wisdom of allowing. In allowing, the mind discovers a quiet strength. There is a misunderstanding that allowing means giving up. But the Buddha showed something different. Allowing is not surrender and weakness. It is clarity in action. It is seeing what is present without distortion. When you allow an experience, you are not trapped by it. You are meeting it fully. And in that meeting, the mind becomes steady. Decisions become clearer. Responses become more precise. There is no urgency to escape, no pressure to control. Just a quiet awareness guiding the next step. And this awareness carries a kind of intelligence that force cannot create. The end of the second arrow. There is an old way of describing this. The first arrow is pain. It arrives without asking. It is part of being alive. The second arrow is resistance. It is the mind's reaction, the tightening, the refusal. The Buddha saw that while the first cannot always be avoided, the second is not inevitable. When you notice the moment resistance begins, something shifts. You do not add the second arrow. And without it, the experience, though still present, becomes simpler, cleaner, easier to hold. Pain remains. Suffering does not deepen. living without excess weight. Over time, this way of seeing begins to shape daily life. Small inconveniences no longer grow into large frustrations. Emotional moments pass more freely. The mind becomes less entangled in what it cannot change. There is still effort, still care, still engagement with the world, but without the added layer of struggle. The Buddha did not remove life's difficulties. He changed the relationship to them. And in that change, something quiet and stable appears. A sense that you can meet each moment as it comes, without needing to reshape it first. The quiet freedom. Freedom is not found in changing life, but in seeing it clearly. And so, you return to that first moment. Pain arises. This is natural. But now, there is awareness. You see the mind preparing to resist, to argue, to tighten. And instead of following, you remain. The experience unfolds. It moves. It changes. And in that movement, something opens. Not a dramatic release, but a quiet easing, a sense that nothing extra is being added, that the moment is allowed to complete itself. This is where freedom begins. Not in removing what is difficult, but in no longer turning difficulty into suffering. And in this understanding, life continues as it always has, but the mind moves differently within it. More gently, more clearly, more free. This is Buddha Reflections, where philosophy, insight, and lived experience meet to explore mind, impermanence, and release. The conversation doesn't end here. Visit the quiz tab and share your score in the comments. Thanks for your time. It's been a delight. What should we explore next? Comment, share, and save your insight. Subscribe to Orbital Dharma and keep your thoughts bright.